Right, and now let's go to the UK, where new research has shown 43% of Britons are supplementing their main income with additional jobs or businesses. The extra income is said to help bolster total income at a time when the cost of living crisis is really affecting millions of households. Lape Olarinoye reports.
As a recession looms, thousands across the UK are now finding alternative methods to increase their income. Ted is one of many, balancing his day job in recruitment while starting an online clothing business.
So yeah, balance has been the hardest part, I'd say, because obviously with the 9 to 5 day job, I've got meetings throughout the day. So it's kind of scheduling and working around that, utilising my lunch times, maybe waking up earlier to get work done so I have more time during the day.
The average salary in the UK is $34,000, but with a biting cost of living crisis, second jobs or side hustles offer an increase in household income. Ted, after being made redundant in 2021, wanted to scale up his online business and used it to provide himself with better stability in an unstable job market.
My job can go any minute. What else can I do to kind of get residual income on a regular basis? And something I kind of have a passion for.
More people in the UK are relying on additional income to keep afloat financially and turning to e-commerce and online websites. As the scramble for second jobs continues to increase, there are calls for online marketplaces to be more accountable in reporting the profits made by individuals using their platforms. Just last month, the UK's tax authority, HMRC, widened its net of mandatory income tax to those earning over the equivalent of $1,200 for side hustles.
HMRC have gained the powers to go to companies like I mentioned before, Airbnb, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, that kind of thing, and ask them to report their customers' earnings. And what HMRC now have the power to do is to correlate those earnings to what taxpayers are putting on their tax returns.
Yeah, exactly. Despite the tax crackdown, business experts like Richard say this will not deter those wanting to increase their earnings.
It's easier to start a business with a laptop in your bedroom and on a shoestring budget than it was 20 years ago. No longer do you need a big network, a high element of capital injection, investment, for example, bank loans. It's pretty straightforward to start a business these days.
With millions more in the UK set to start side hustles in the coming years, this new way of earning could be a pathway to rising entrepreneurship for the British economy. Lape Olarinoye, TRT World, London.
For more on this now, let's go to Yusuf Al-Shamari. He is CEO of consultancy company C Markets and Senior Research Fellow at Imperial College London. Thank you for joining us today. Yusuf, the UK recession may in fact already be over, and there are now distinct signs of an upturn. That's what the Bank of England's Governor, Andrew Bailey, has said. Is he right? Do you agree?
Hi, Ludwika. Good morning. To some extent, yes. I tend not to be too much worried about the recent figures that we saw that UK flipping into shallow recession Q3, Q4 2023. We saw like 0.1% or the minus in economic shrinkage in 2023 and minus 0.3 in Q4. But on the other hand, is the unemployment actually fell from 4% to 3.8% and as of December 2023. On the other hand, if you look at the CPI, which is the inflation year on year, it is now almost 4%. 2 years ago, it used to be 10%. And what does that mean is that the interest rate, or the high level of interest rate, has really worked out. So one thing here is that I think that the Bank of England will not be like, definitely I don't think they will speed up the time at which they will cut interest rate this time due to the numbers that we saw end of 2023. And I believe here, I think one thing that they'll be really watching is the unemployment rate. And as long as it remains low, I don't think that will really be a major concern for them. Perhaps there is an issue for because it's the conservative, they have general elections this year. So there could be some challenges for the conservative. But overall, I think the Bank of England somehow should have a convenient job when it comes to the time when they cut interest rates this year.
And right on this point, because you say there's actually a possibility for this recession to be shallow, rather, what do you think that the Bank of England will do? I mean, will they cut rates this year? When will they start, in your opinion? But also, what would the pace be of these rate cuts?
Okay, at this time, the interest rates are at 5.25%, and they're expecting to bring it down by 1% to 4.25%. So the market expects that the starting that cycle of rate cuts will happen sometime around mid-year, maybe around July time. And if we possibly we're going to see 3 rate cuts. Possibly that is also somehow similar to what the Fed in the US is going to do. And because at the end of the day, the G7 economies are very much interrelated. So we could see a beginning of 0.25% and then taking that to 0.2, another 0.25, and then another 0.5%. So I believe that we're likely to see 3 rate cuts with at least one of them will have to be 0.5%. And that then will enable us somehow, of course, as we go to 2025, then I think then they'll continue the rate cuts high to bring it down to 4.25%. So I think they have still a long way to go. But one important thing is that they'll have to keep watching the inflation levels.
Exactly.
One thing could be helpful at this time is oil prices. Oil now is at around $80. Not expecting that oil prices will maybe reach $90 or $100 as we saw in 2022. That was a major reason. Also, importantly, gas prices are somehow low. So I think these are 2 important factors that could enable them somehow to have an easier job when it comes to rate cuts this year.
Interesting, Yusuf, that you mentioned that. Sorry to interrupt you, but you've spoken about unemployment, right? And rightly so, because now we have an unemployment rate in the UK that's essentially now close to the natural rate of unemployment, isn't it, right? But inflation, Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, at least he said it's likely to be helped by lower oil prices, although they might correct and start soaring once again towards the end of the year. Is that a possibility?
For oil, you mean?
Exactly.
Well, I don't think we're going to see a soaring oil prices this year. The reason is we have ample supplies from the US, from outside the OPEC Plus alliance. Demand is somehow sluggish, especially now with China, with demand growth in China is not picking up at a fast rate. So I believe even with the figures that we saw from the EU and the US, the economy is somehow not as fast as it used to be. So I believe we're expecting to see oil demand growth from 1 to 1.5 million barrels this year. And that somehow makes me less concerned about the speed at which oil prices will rise. Also, one issue here is that OPEC Plus I'm not expecting that they will make further cuts this year. The most likely scenario is that they'll keep the cut until the end of 2024. And that somehow should keep prices stable for at least the first half of 2024.
Very, very interesting insights. Yusuf Al-Shamari, thank you for being with us.